The eviction notice wasn't loud. It didn't shout or threaten. It sat quietly on the kitchen counter while the microwave clock blinked 12 o'clock again and again, like it was counting down Emily Carter's last chances. Outside her Chicago apartment, sirens wailed somewhere far off, and the city kept moving as if nothing was wrong. But everything was wrong. Emily had 3 days. 3 days to find money she didn't have. She pressed her palms to the counter and took a breath that didn't help. 2 months earlier, she had been a full-time marketing assistant with a packed calendar and a steady paycheck. Then the company downsized. The goodbye meeting took 10 minutes. The email took 1 line. Her life changed in silence. She had told herself she would land on her feet. She always did. She picked up small freelance jobs, sold old clothes, online. She skipped dinners out, then groceries, then heat. Still, the rent didn't care how hard she tried. Her landlord, Daniel Wright, was due to stop by that evening. Daniel wasn't a villain. That made it worse. He was in his late 30s, neat but not stiff, with a calm voice that never rushed. When Emily moved in a year ago, he'd carried her boxes up the stairs himself. When the sink clogged, he fixed it the same day. When she paid rent on time, he sent a short thank you text. He treated people like people, not problems. That was why her chest hurt. Emily checked her phone. No new emails. No miracle job offers. Just the same unanswered applications and polite rejections. She rubbed her eyes and stood, forcing herself to clean the apartment. If this was the night she had to explain everything, she would at least stand in a tidy room. The knock came early. 3 firm taps. Not angry. Not gentle. Certain. Emily opened the door and froze. Daniel stood there, rain clinging to his jacket, his hair damp from the spring storm. But he wasn't alone. Behind him were 2 other people she didn't recognize. A woman in her early 60s with silver hair pulled into a neat bun, and a tall man with kind eyes and a worn leather bag over his shoulder. Emily's heart dropped. "Hi, Emily," Daniel said. "May we come in?" Her mouth went dry, but she stepped aside. The apartment felt smaller with strangers inside. The woman looked around with interest, not judgment. The man nodded politely and set his bag by the door. Daniel stayed standing, hands loosely folded like he was careful not to take up space. "I know this is unexpected," Daniel said. "I should explain." Emily swallowed. I know I'm late. I was going to call. Please," he said gently, "sit." She sat on the edge of the couch, hands clasped tight. The woman smiled at her and introduced herself. "First, I'm Margaret," she said, "Daniel's aunt." "I'm Robert," the man said. "A friend." Emily nodded, her mind racing. Friends didn't usually come for rent talks. It felt serious. Final, Daniel took a breath. "Emily told me last month things were tight," he said, speaking carefully, like he didn't want to put words in her mouth. "This month, the payment didn't come. I wanted to talk face to face." Emily stared at the floor. "I lost my Job, I'm not avoiding you. I just didn't have an answer yet." Margaret leaned forward slightly. "Then tell us what you do have." Emily looked up, surprised. She found herself talking about the layoff, about the interviews that went nowhere, about the freelance work that paid too little, too late, about her family back in Ohio who thought she was doing fine. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just told the truth because she was too tired to hide it anymore. The room stayed quiet while she spoke. When she finished, Daniel nodded slowly. "Thank you for being honest." Robert asked, "How long do you think before steady work?" "I don't know," Emily said. "Soon, I hope. I've got 2 interviews this week." Margaret smiled. "Hope counts for something. So does effort." Emily didn't know what to say to that. Daniel cleared his throat. "I brought Margaret and Robert because I didn't want this to be just about rules. I wanted perspective." Emily's pulse picked up. Perspective could mean many things. Margaret folded her hands. "Emily, do you like living here?" "Yes," Emily said quickly. "I love it. You take care of the place? Yes. Have you been respectful and honest since you moved in? Emily nodded. I try to be. Margaret exchanged a glance with Daniel. Then this isn't a simple failure. It's a hard season. Emily felt something loosen in her chest. Robert spoke next. I work with housing support groups, not handouts, bridges, short-term help so people don't fall through cracks. Emily looked at Daniel, confused. What does that mean for me? Daniel didn't answer right away. He stood and walked to the window, watching rain slide down the glass. It means, he said slowly, that I don't want to make a rushed decision that hurts someone who's trying. Emily's breath caught. Are you saying I don't have to leave? I'm saying we're not deciding tonight. The words landed softly, but changed everything. Daniel turned back to her. I need to review some options. You need time to focus on work. Margaret and Robert wanted to hear your side before anything final. Emily nodded, afraid to hope too much. Margaret stood and reached for her coat. We'll let you breathe at the door. Margaret paused. Emily, she said, hard times don't erase who you are. When the door closed, the apartment felt quiet in a different way, not empty. Waiting, Emily sank onto the couch, her heart racing. She didn't know what just happened, but it wasn't the ending she feared. The next 2 days passed in a blur. Interviews, emails, restless sleep. Every knock made her jump. Every phone buzz made her chest tighten. On the third morning, Daniel texted, Can we talk? Coffee downstairs. Emily stared at the message for a long time before replying yes. The cafe on the corner smelled like fresh bread and warm coffee. Daniel was already there, seated near the window. No Margaret, no Robert, just him. Thanks for coming, he said. Emily sat, wrapping her hands around the cup he slid toward her. I didn't know what to expect the other night. Neither did I, Daniel admitted. But I'm glad we talked. He explained that Robert's group helped people with short-term gaps. That Margaret mentored people who were rebuilding careers. That there were options that didn't end with boxes and goodbye notes. Emily listened, stunned. And what do you want? She asked quietly. Daniel met her eyes. I want fairness. I want honesty. And I want to do this right. For the first time in weeks, Emily felt something stronger than fear. Hope. But as Daniel reached for his coffee, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, his expression changing just slightly. I need to tell you something else, he said. Emily's stomach tightened. And before he could continue, the cafe door opened, and someone stepped inside who would change everything she thought she understood. The moment stretched. Emily held her breath. The woman who walked into the cafe looked confident, polished, and completely out of place in Emily's fragile morning. She wore a tailored coat and carried herself like someone who always knew where she was going. When Daniel looked up and froze, Emily knew this wasn't a stranger. Daniel, the woman said, stopping at their table. There you are. Emily's heart dropped. Daniel stood quickly. Emily, this is Claire, he said. My business partner. Claire smiled. Sharp but polite. Sorry to interrupt. I didn't know you had company. It's fine, Daniel said, though his voice had tightened. We were just talking. Claire's eyes flicked to Emily, curious, measuring, about the building. Emily felt small suddenly, like she had stepped into a room she didn't belong in. Daniel nodded. Yes, about the building. Claire pulled out a chair and sat without asking. Good. Then this is perfect timing. Emily wrapped her fingers tighter around her coffee cup. Claire leaned forward. Daniel, the offer is solid. Investors want answers this week. If we move forward, you'll need the units cleared fast. No delays. The words hit Emily like cold air. Cleared. Daniel's jaw tightened. That's not what we agreed to discuss today. Claire sighed. This is business. You said yourself the property is underperforming. Emily felt her pulse in her ears. This was it. This was the real reason. The visit, the friends, the pause. It all suddenly felt fragile. Daniel turned to Emily. "Claire, this isn't appropriate." Claire looked surprised, then amused. "I didn't realize tenants were part of negotiations now." Emily stood. "I should go," she said quietly. Daniel reached out. "Emily," she shook her head. "It's okay. I understand." But she didn't, not fully. All she knew was that hope had been real for a moment, and now it was slipping. She left the cafe without looking back. The next few days were heavy. Emily threw herself into work. Applications, interviews, anything that kept her from thinking. Margaret called once, checking in gently. Robert emailed her resources. No one promised anything. Daniel didn't call. On the fourth day, Emily got an email offering a short-term contract. Not perfect, not permanent, but enough to breathe. She signed immediately. That evening, there was a knock at her door. She opened it and found Daniel standing there alone. No jacket this time, no distance in his eyes. "I owe you an explanation," he said. Emily stepped aside. They stood in the living room where fear had lived just days before. Daniel didn't sit. Neither did she. "Claire wants to sell," he said. "Thinking numbers. Speed. I brought her into the business years ago because she's smart, but I forgot something." Emily waited. "I forgot that buildings are homes before they're assets." Her throat tightened. "I didn't bring Margaret and Robert to prepare an exit," Daniel continued. "I brought them because I needed courage. I needed to remember why I bought this place in the first place." Emily crossed her arms. "So what happens now?" Daniel met her eyes. "I told Claire no." The word hung in the air. "She wasn't happy," he said. "But she doesn't get to decide alone." Emily felt tears sting, unexpected and fast. "I found work," she said quickly, not wanting to seem weak. "Short term, but," Daniel smiled, relieved. "I know, Margaret told me." Emily blinked. "You been talking about me?" "Only good things," he said softly. Silence stretched between them, but it wasn't heavy. It was careful. It's honest. "I don't want you to feel like a problem I had to solve," Daniel said. "You're not." Emily swallowed. "This month scared me." "Me too," he admitted. "Not because of rent. Because I realized how easily people can be pushed aside." They stood there close enough to feel it, whatever it was. Respect, attraction, something unspoken but clear. Over the next weeks, life moved forward. Emily worked hard. Long hours, late nights. Daniel stayed professional but kind. He fixed the hallway light. He asked how her day went. Nothing crossed the line. Until one evening, after Emily finished a long shift, she found a note taped to her door. "If you're free, dinner, no paperwork, just food." She smiled before she could stop herself. They went to a small restaurant nearby, talked about work, about mistakes, about starting over. Daniel told her about buying the building after his divorce. Wanting something steady? Emily told him about moving cities to feel brave again. There was no rush, no pressure. When they walked back, rain began to fall, light and clean. "I'm glad you stayed," Daniel said. "So am I," Emily replied. At her door, they paused. The moment felt full, complete without needing more. "Good night, Emily," Daniel said. "Good night, Daniel." She closed the door with a quiet smile. The apartment felt like home again, not because the rent was paid, but because she was seen.